Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live. We're going to be working on a pretty big piece here. Not quite 8.5 by 11, but 8.25 by 10.5. Or is it, wait, let me see, 8 by 10.5. So half-inch short from standard le letter size here. I'm going to be trying to do a covered bridge, but with a larger forest here in the foreground. I don't remember doing that on a full-size piece before. I've done a lot of half-size pieces with this imagery, and I just don't recall if I've done something full page or not. But, okay, so the idea of this one is to get a decent amount of color into a scene. I've been doing a lot of monochromatics, the white, black, silver, mostly, things like that. So I just wanted to go full color again. I don't know, if I don't do that for like a week, I don't know, I get a little bit antsy or something, I'm assuming, because I tend to flip-flop around. I'll do a lot of real colorful pieces. Hello, Debbie! And I don't know. I'll do a lot of colored pieces and I'll go monochromatic for a little bit, or it doesn't not necessarily just monochromatic, but kind of limited color scheme types of scenarios. So, okay. So this being said, I have some autumn types of foliage in here. I don't know if I'll make it autumn. I might make it more spring. And go with green. I'm not sure. We can do all kinds of different tones on this. Okay, but what I was getting at here, my point was that we can color our different imagery to give ourselves a nice head start with some color in there inherently. Sometimes when you're working big like this, you know, you can just stamp things out in just an all in black and then just color it in. It does change kind of the depth of a piece if you do things kind of more black and white and then you just color it in as opposed to integrating those colors within the, this color scheme. One good thing about going just black though too is that, you can stamp everything out and decide what colors you want to use after you see the full composition, which there's something to be said for that as well. But for me here, I'm trying to decide. I think I'm just going to go with just the main composition first, and then I'll decide later. I was deciding on whether or not I want to go with kind of pink, purplish toned foliage, or if I want to go fall. But I think I won't go fall. I don't know. We just got through with fall and we're in winter right now. It seems a little bit far off. But the upcoming season would be spring, and sometimes that, people that, if you're in an area that, really sees the full 4 seasons, and if there's especially a long winter, sometimes you look forward to the spring, so we might go in something like this. Semi-gloss cardstock here that we're working on. All right. So I'm going to have a lot of space right in here to do some different imagery. I'm thinking now, maybe I'd want to do this one a little bit more over here. If I did that, then I would have more room for my tall trees. Here, we're changing course here. Just because this is such a big composition right here, and I know some of the other components that I want to add in here, so we're going to do that. Hello, Linda. You can stamp along with me if you're thinking of what to do. Grab your autumn covered bridge and some tree trunks. How's the arm and shoulder doing? Okay, let's see. All right, so this road is going to be going right along here, okay? And I'm going to use some of the foamies here just to play around with scale, okay? So there's going to be a lot of, I don't know, it's almost like you're like sculpting a whatever landscape down this way in terms of the foreground when you have so much open space, right? Normally we're working with cards, it's going to be about this size right here, even if it's a slimline card. Or, if you're doing something this way, then you have this space right here. But we have a huge amount of open space in here, so that was a big consideration as far as kind of my thoughts going into this one. Yeah. Okay, so that being said, sedge filler is oftentimes my land-based sculptural form. It's one of the most basic ones right here, and it's going to flank my road coming out this way. We don't want to keep that road kind of the same width. Keep in mind it is coming out in perspective, so this road's kind of curving around this way, and if it were to come down this way, it would probably be something like this, okay? Now you're looking at it from the side, so it's not like it's flaring out, or we could do, actually, is we could have the road, maybe that'll be better. I'll have the road kind of coming down this way like this. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a... Do I even have a pencil here? I don't think I even have a pencil. I'm never drawing on my pieces, but maybe on this one it might be a good idea to do that. Okay, here's a paint pen. Okay, so let's see if we can have it coming down this way like so. I'm just doing myself, making myself just a little dot pattern guide. Like this, okay. Yeah, you can do it in whatever color. Okay, so I don't think you can see that, but the road is going to come this way, and it's going to come down this way, and right here, okay? So we'll see how this works out. Like I said, I usually don't do that type of thing, but I think for this scenario, I think it'll be a good idea. All right. So it'll be like this. All right. Like that. I don't want to curve this around like that way because that'll look kind of strange having that patterning. Oops. Go that way. So let's go like this. Okay, now remember this is just texture, so like something like that's not going to matter. Or it shouldn't. We'll see. Okay. So just filling in right here. I should go with some little bit larger texture in here. Here's my larger grass texture right here for the foreground, okay? And let's see, we have this bank right over here. So it'll go roughly like that. You see how rough this is? This is how it always kind of looks initially. All right, so you don't have to get things all kind of pristine and everything like that. It's not going to matter. Hello, Rhonda. Huh. And take care of that arm, Linda. I've been doing a lot of stretching out of my arm. I don't know if it's the weather or something like that, but I'm getting real tight in the joint like that. So it's like if I bend it and work it out at a certain kind of I don't know, whatever angle and stuff like that, I'm good to that angle. So I need to kind of stretch it out like beyond that. And I'm just when I'm just sitting around, I'm just constantly working that out, and it seems like it's getting, I think I can just get rid of, kind of that, I don't know, that, whatever it is, like in one sitting if I really wanted to. Okay, so adding in some of these little rock formations and doing it in different values, so going with some darker and some lighter impressions will help it out. Let me work some perspective into here too. All right, I'm gonna really dampen this up because I think I'm going to do these ones down here maybe in color too once I figure out kind of the overall color scheme. Okay, something like that. It's a little bit rough right now, but we're going to bring in our big players in this, which will be, I'm not sure if I'm going like this big right here. This is really huge. It could be something really close to us, though, to really frame off the scene like that. It could be interesting, though, to use that one. I think I might do it, I mean, we're going kind of big in here anyway. Or, you know what I mean, just in the piece of paper, so I don't know, maybe we'll just go for it. Good to do, good to know. Do whatever needs to be done. You got to think of all those scenes, Linda. The scenes to come that need your scene building apparatus in good working order. Okay, adding in these little rocks here, kind of at the side of that little creek. Okay. All right, and we can do that at any point in time. But let's go big here, okay? Let's go with these trees out here. So it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be a combination deciduous and like evergreen in here. So, all right. Okay, wait. Right over here, I thought, okay, I can only fit these two trunks right here if that huge tree goes there. So let me do this one first. All right. And then over here, I'll use all three. So if you use the one with the impression with just using the two trees first, then I won't have to clean something off when I do it over here, Okay. Again, I don't know if I've used the foamies with the dye-based ink yet, so I'll save than sorry. Let me go a little bit more ink on here. This one's going to be really juicy, probably. Probably, I don't know. I don't know about probably, but might even be over-inked. All right, so I just need this to go off the page up top. So I can get quite a bit of it in here just from the sheer scale of these larger pieces here. If you're working with smaller, the smaller, 4.5 inch size ones, 4.25, then just stamp it a little bit higher, or maybe you do a little bit of a shorter composition if you're going to be kind of going for somewhat of a replica of this one. Or you can just use your tree trunk and then flip that upside down and, do it again, as opposed to using the tree trunk trio. All right, let's see how that comes out, about like so. All right, it's pretty dramatic. And we'll go with this one down here. Now I feel like just doing this one right over here, but let's see if I go high. Let me go low on this one. I might be pulling out the rubber stamp version of it to go right in here. So I'm looking at this one right here. I wish these trees right here were kind of flip-flop, so I'd have the interior lighting coming from the other side. Or I don't know, maybe I'll have just all the lighting coming from one direction on this one. I usually have it kind of a scene interior lit, but maybe on this one I'll do it a little bit differently. Or I don't know, maybe I'll just... No, okay, I'm going to stamp this a little bit lower. I was almost going to stamp it right up here because that would take care of the entire width up there, but these trees are really big and I don't necessarily want them to represent like giant sequoias or something of that sort. Is everyone ready for Christmas and just the holidays in general? Okay, so that is that. That is so dramatic. I'm looking at these trees. I'm still not real used to these. I'm using them is easy. It's just like using a stamp, but I'm getting used to looking at them just in terms of how they look in the foamy version. There's more contrast in there just because of the the manner in which these are made, with a little laser beam kind of cutting these out. There's a huge amount of detail in my designs, and that little laser beam has to cut around a lot of that. So, and there's certain sizes of dots that just, it can't cut out because the detail is just getting too extreme. So there's a wider kind of gap in between the solids and, the finest of details within these images. So, and therefore, the smaller little detailing types of things are being eliminated. So there's just more contrast in here as opposed to kind of gradations of, what represents, the gray tones within the designs. So it's always it's interesting for me to look at that. All right, so this is coming together. We needed that scale in here, right? And then I'll throw another one up there. I might just maybe I'll go with this one right here. I was going to go with the smaller version of that, but let's just make it easy and just go with the smaller version of this right here. I was curious to know to know what these would look like in a vellum type of application. I need to get back to some vellum at some point in time. I haven't been doing that lately because I thought about doing some vellum at a couple different points, but you know, I do these live streams a lot of times at, you know, closer to night, and I just haven't, you know, I'm usually not spray sealing things like too late. Or going outside and spray sealing, you know, with especially adhesives and stuff like that. I don't know. I could though, I guess. All right, I'm gonna use a little tiny piece of this little trunk. Just this little open area. I don't know, I just want to frame this off a little bit more. I'm just going like this down here. All right, so I don't know. That made pretty quick work of you know, the major bulk of the composition. Hello, Linda D. All right. Definitely, that is it with the foamies. And okay, so we have these little gaps in here to fill in with some additional texture. Okay, it's imagery, but it's just going to read as texture. Hello, CM Hawkins. Some additional deciduous trees in the background. Maybe I'll add some evergreens kind of interspersed in here. All right, we need some evergreens kind of within that structuring, you know, because, you know, the foreground has them too, so it'd be a good idea to get some within this space. Okay, let's see. Let's go like this, go like that. I'm just using the top portion of this right here. I don't know if I've used, I probably haven't used this pine with these before. I'm trying to remember if I've thrown in a pine amongst these maples before. I don't remember, but I think it's working pretty good. All right, now we have this area in here that's flanking our road. Let's see here. Okay, now that I have the trees in here, I can see what I need to fill in. So I left some areas kind of open in here before, just because I wanted to get my main imagery kind of established and set, so let's fill in with some additional textures. And we'll create kind of a little bit of a sloping, grassy form in here. I wonder, I'm just curious to know if my fences can go in here. I don't, this angle right here, I'm not quite sure, but I might be able to get them a little bit like this. That'll give this area down here a little bit more kind of a structuring, leading the eye back in this direction. I'm not sure. Hello, Jen. All right, so let me test at a couple angles here. Let me see. If this is here, yeah, I'd have to really angle my fence like this, which might look okay. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'll go for it here. Let me see. We do have different sizes for this, like, purpose here. That one's a little bit too small. I'd have to go with the two largest ones. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna do it here. We'll see how it goes. It's just going to be a little bit here. But I want a stronger lead in here. I mean, you can do it with all kinds of things, but if I can do it with imagery to just make things, it's like an instant visual kind of entry point into the scene, then, all the better. I mean, we're going to do it, in every way that we can here with color and kind of contrast and everything like that, but let's start it off here with the imagery. And plus, the more I fill in with imagery too, there's going to be kind of less coloring probably that's needed. Not that that's why I'm doing it though. I don't think, at least consciously, maybe subconsciously. A big, huge piece, that's, it's a lot of coloring to do. Unless we just do it in black and white, in which case we're done. I don't know, there's a lot of areas in here. It seems like it's going to be pretty easy in terms of a coloring assignment though. All right, this one right here, this one's just going to be a tiny little piece of this coming in from this side. And let me angle it slightly more. Let's go like that. Okay, so it's about maybe 1.5 inches in here, something like that, right at the base of this tree. If I knew I was going to put this fence in here, I probably would have stamped this tree slightly higher, another 1/2 inch or something like that. But you get something like this, okay? All right, so that is the basic, compositional structuring of this. We'll add in a bunch more things in here just to kind of round it out. Let's go in with some additional textural forms too. Here's the leafless pines. I'm thinking I can add that somewhere in the background. So some of you were thinking about what you would do tonight, and so was I. I know I wanted to do something in color, but I wasn't quite sure what, though. All right, so see those extra little trees like that. And then, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing. At least in terms of the scene here. Okay, so what's going through on my mind right now is I'm kind of wondering, I'm looking at this and contemplating what colors to use in there. I mean, like I said, being that it's in black and white right here, it can really be anything still. From a thematic standpoint, but like I said, maybe kind of spring types of colors. Okay, so reiterating that leafless pine back there, adding a larger one somewhere else within the scene gives the scene a little bit of a continuity in terms of whatever texture and form, larger and smaller, near and far. All right, and let's go with another one right here. Yeah, I think I want to. Okay, now that I planted these dead trees right here, I think I do want to go really lively with greens and things like that, just to contrast against that, I don't know, whatever, these dead forms within the composition. Let's bring it to life a little bit more. It's starting to, with those dead trees, it kind of changed the, I don't know, whatever, the mood of the scene a little bit. Hello, Doctor. Good to see you. Let's see. You find all black and white almost as much work as adding color. That's true, but when I do add colors, I shade with multiple colors instead of just like black and gray, if I do even use gray. 1 p.m. in the afternoon. You can eat it, have lunch while watching here. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm looking at the my inks here. There's a lot of ink on these trees. I'll need to heat set this a little bit. Okay, so this right here, I need to bring a little bit more texture into that transition right there. So there's little things that we can do here. I mean, there's not one thing, solution to anything with something like this. First of all, the colors are wide open, whatever color scheme you want to do. But, okay, so from a lighting standpoint, we can have light coming from, right back in here. I mean, lighting could be just somewhere else, and I can have areas down here that are illuminated. We can make this area more shaded, in the forest or something like that. You don't have to think about natural light. This is more of like a stage that we've created here, and you are the lighting director of your stage production right here. If your subject is right here, something like that, you want a spotlight on them, they could be illuminated right in here, or this area could be really darkened, bringing more emphasis to something like this, or you can do both, I mean, you can have multiple kind of focal points based on areas where you've retained kind of the lighter areas within the piece. So I don't know, there's all kinds of things to do that we can do, rather. All right, I was thinking about stamping out this, all of this old man and dog stamp. But knowing I was going to be creating this road, I wanted to see kind of where they would fit from a scale standpoint. Let me just do this right here. All right, so they can be in here. They can be way up here. Okay. Or they can be lower, and if you stamp them lower, it kind of gives you a little bit of a... If you stamp them right here, you're saying that that tree is really gigantic, right? But if you stamp them back here, I guess by scale, that tree is still pretty big, you know, but definitely down here, right? I mean, I think this works okay right here. It's a little bit far, you know what I mean? And close to this, you're saying, you know what I mean? In terms of scale. So I would put it like right up here. Anywhere like right in here, I think is good. If you stamp it here, what you're saying is that that tree is larger, though, visually. Or you can put it right here. It's still a big tree, though, but something like that. Okay, so there's plenty of, you know, space to put in. Like, I wouldn't do it down here, like something like that. Then you're saying that these fences are, you know what I mean? They're like overhead. All right, but something like that would be kind of interesting. Okay, so I'm just thinking about this just in terms of lighting, okay? If I'm going to have this subject matter in here, I'm probably going to have some area that's slightly illuminated. But not necessarily, you know, they could be coming out of the darkness too. You can have this whole area in here kind of darker too, so. Okay, so that being said, we just have to make a decision. If I stamp this figure in here, they're going to be moving in this direction, so I'm usually putting that lighting kind of like where someone's moving into the light, so I would probably position lighting out here, so I'd have shadows kind of coming from like in this direction. I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting to throw a moon up here and have shadows kind of crossing the road too. There's too many, you know what I mean? We have a lot of choices in stamping here, right? Okay, so, okay, I'm not going to stamp that figure, though. I might get to the end of it and say, okay, I don't want to stamp that figure anymore, okay? But I want those figures to be nice and super crisp, okay? So I'm going to be using a lot of colors in here, and I want my subject matter to be nice and crisp, and I don't want to stamp them out and have them to be the last thing I stamped out before I start coloring it in, because I would, you know, potentially blur them too, because I just re-inked my black pad too. So anyway, Cheryl, hope you liked that blue holographic. That was really fun. Oh, by the way, on the blue holographics, I did something that I always tell people not to, and I went out and sprayed them, but I was a little bit impatient, you know, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to get in one spray, and I soaked them a little bit too much, you know, with a big, huge glob, you know, not huge, but I spray sealed them, and I get, instead of, you know, real thin layers and doing like 2 or 3 of them, allowing each one to dry before I went on with the next sealant, I went a little bit thick. I got it in like one pass, you know, and it changed the texture on the surface a little bit. Yeah, I can see like a watercolory pattern within that blue. It didn't look bad, and the holographic, it didn't really affect that part, but you get a little bit of this texturing happening on there. So, you know, keep that in mind if, you know, you're spray sealing. And I really need to work on my stays on technique on that type of paper. I need to stamp faster and see if I can utilize that stays on one just so I don't have to spray seal. So yeah, I don't know, I need to work on my stays on game. I almost feel like doing this one in monochromatic. Not this one right here, but doing this composition again. I like the composition. Okay, so I've heat set this. Some of it's still a little bit wet. Okay, so I'm going to be getting some smudgy, kind of muddled applications, especially that'll be very visible with my first few layers of inks. But what we're going to do is we're going to work from light and dull to um, bright and darker through this process right here. Okay, I'm going to use the colored pencils on here too. I really like the colored pencils on this paper, and we're going to, I'm thinking about nice kind of lively greens and things like that in here. I'm thinking about springtime or something like that. It's just kind of a general cheerier looking, cheerier type of color scheme here. Maybe. Because I'm looking at this now too. It'd be kind of cool and kind of sepia tones and things like that. Okay, let's. I don't know. I'll have something maybe in between, but I want some bright tones in here. Where there's going to be life in the grass and things of that sort. So. All right, so here's some peeled paint, walnut stain. And I just haven't gotten around to getting a lot of re-inkers for certain types of colors, so I'm going to use some very old tones. I used my Peach Bellini on something recently, and I need to get rid of some of this stuff, so I haven't used a lot of my like Adirondack lights. This was seashells, and then the name they changed it to were Adirondack lights, but just any type of light toned color would be great. Your your distress inks, not stays on, okay? Your distress ink colors, kind of the warmer tones would work really great for this. People talked about, what was it, old paper, was it, or whatnot. I like antique linen and all those light tones. The old paper, I think I have the old paper too, but I just didn't have the re-inker for it, so I've just happened to use the antique linen a lot more than the old paper. But anything like that. So a warm toned kind of base layer, even if you're going to have like different areas of color in there, different zones of different hues other than the color that you're laying down with the base color. I think it's a good idea to do. So just stick with kind of warm and light, okay? Warm in terms of temperature, light in terms of value, okay? So anything like that, okay? You don't have to go out looking for a, Peach Bellini, you know what I mean? Because that's not, I would have used the antique linen if I had it, or something, something of that sort. Okay. As I was blabbing, let me get a little bit more tone on this. I think I folded my paper towel here. This is a paper towel. Okay, and what I've done is I've kind of smashed it out here a little bit, so I just don't have that patterning on there. But even if you have the patterning, it's not going to really matter. Okay. Oh, I was going to use the side of this fence over here to finish off this fence where this one ends right there, but this is going to get so dark in here, I don't think it's going to matter, so. Okay, so let's color in these trees here, these trunks first, okay. And this will kind of get a lot of the lighting scheme established here too, so it's not just kind of base layer for coloring, you're kind of lighting too. Okay, now I'm getting a lot of that black going back into solution right here. And that's where I mentioned it's going to get kind of muddled, because I knew some of that black from, all this different imagery is going to be sitting on the surface right there, and it'll go back into solution with this, okay? So just keep that in mind, and I don't know, don't really sweat it. If it gets really dark though, okay, then just change up. That's getting a little bit dark right there, but that's going to be in the shadows anyways, so just take this and switch it off to a cleaner area, and then you can start using that in the lighter areas, and then just when that gets a little bit too dark, then just switch up again if need be. Just do that as many times as you need to. If there's certain things are starting to smear a little bit like this one is, then just dab instead, like that, so you're not kind of dragging, okay? But remember, this is just your base layer coat, and adding down these base layers like this, like I said, it kind of establishes a little bit of that temperature, but it establishes your lighting. You won't have to go into your scene, you know, with colored pencils and all that, and have to do all that kind of, you know, foundational color work. You know, you'll have all these other things kind of already established, and it just makes the I don't know, the other colors to come so much faster and easier to apply. Easier because you're going to have this base layer of a common color, creating continuity with the other colors to come over the top of it. I know it's going to look, like I said, it's going to look a little bit muddy and things like that through the first couple layers, but I don't know, if you work in this process, it's just going to make things so much easier. That's what they do with like oil painting, okay? You start off with a white canvas, it's gessoed and stuff like that, and they put this wash of you know, light. It's usually a warm tone right over the top of it, just to get things started and established like that. So yeah. Hello, Jeannie. You got your cat in your lap. Ink up your cat's paws and have him do a, you know, some sort of abstract. Okay, this is getting kind of dry on here, but it's right now it's like the perfect applicator because it's semi-dry, so it's not so wet, and I don't find it kind of smearing around too much. Or like it was when it was sopping wet. Of course, I was going into these big, you know, areas of black applied trunks. All right, going in my... Okay, now it's starting to pick up some of this one because I went over this real solid area right here, but... Let's go for a re-inking. Let's see. At its wettest point, I'm thinking about, you know, I usually start adding it into kind of my darker areas, okay? In its purest form, boy, that peach Bellini sure is orange. When I add it kind of in a thinner layer, it looks like that antique linen color, or I don't know, one of those distress ink colors. All right, now this is where I'm going to be a little bit careful because this area in here is going to be lighter, kind of, you know, a little bit more of the area that's going to represent the source of light within the scene, okay? And down here on this road, I'm kind of avoiding adding too much tone down there, but I think I do need to get it a little bit lighter. I'm leaving this little area in here a little bit lighter too, or I will be with my other colors to come, because that's kind of roughly the, you know, the general area where I'm going to put that figure. So I don't want them like in the darkness. I want them somewhat illuminated, or at least part of their figure. And what I like to do is I like to oscillate things. So I want this road to be generally lighter, but I don't want it to just be like all lit, you know, something like that. So it's going from light, darker, you know, there's a little bit of light here, darker, light, dark, okay? So you oscillate those things like that, okay? And it looks dark right here, but these whole areas around here are going to get quite a bit darker. So it'll be lighter by contrast. that's it with our base layer coat. So that, you're usually not spending so much time with the base layer coat, but this is like, it's like a full page scene basically. So there's a lot of area to cover in here. And the whole thing is not going to be so monochromatic. I'm just doing this again with the base layer. All right. Oh, you did that when she was a kitten. Do an updated one. Have her walk, get her paws in some pigment ink, and then you can emboss it, a little trail of little paws or something like that. She's going to hate it. And then you can emboss in gold and silver for your Christmas card. Do you think of these compositions at 3 a.m.? I don't think I thought of, I don't know. I thought about this one like, I don't know, like I don't know, whatever, 10 minutes before I came on today. I didn't think of it fully though. Like I stand this one like over here because I was thinking this, but I was like, oh, it needs to be a little bit more central so I can have these big trees here in the foreground. It's a good question though. I don't. The most that I think about in terms of composition, I was thinking, okay, these trees with this stamp right here, okay. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, if I do it on a larger thing, I'm gonna have to do something down here, but like all the rest of it, the additional trees up in here, leafless pine, all that type of stuff, that was kind of thought of, just on the fly here. I know in general what I want to do. I just knew I wanted to do something colorful too. But that's about it. I don't know, but that's probably how you're thinking too, right, Jeannie? I can't imagine you, with all the imagery that you're using, it's probably like a lot of improvisation based on kind of what you're seeing happening, right, within your pieces. If you're thinking of, if you have a lot of that in your head, that's really amazing with all the different combinations, especially, and kind of the dissection of form that you're doing. Same with Linda, right? I mean, you're just probably starting off. I don't know, at most, how many stamps do you think you ever kind of think of using, when starting a piece off, or any of you? I mean, this question can be for anyone. Have any of you kind of started off with like, I don't know, like 10 images in mind that you're definitely going to be using? I'm talking about when you're just kind of composing, not, if you're going to replicate something, then kind of know what you're going to be using. But I don't know. I don't think that far ahead most of the time. Now, if I'm limited to a set or something like that, okay, I'm going to use nature set number, whatever, 6 or something like that, then I know, what imagery I'll be using. There's probably still some images that I'll use in here based on how this is looking, that'll get added into it. Oh, so I almost forgot. Yeah, so I'm going to add in some tree forms or some leaves or something like that to kind of come in from the top a little bit or on the side. But let's see how we'll get to here. One thing too, God, it's a little bit cooler today. I mean, today down in Southern California was pretty warm. It was like in the low 70s, I think. But it's when I get stamping like this, I don't know, it's like get the molecules moving or something like that. I need to warm up. All right, so here's where I start getting into a little bit of my shading work here. So, okay. Like that. This is walnut stain, if I didn't mention it. So just any kind of warmer tone, okay? So it doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to be brown that you're going to be using it on. I'm going to use a lot of green tones in this area. And make it maybe a little bit cheery. I don't know what mood those blue tone holographics are. I wouldn't say they're cheery, you know what I mean? They're more I don't know, what, contemplative. They certainly evoke a certain mood, you know, I would say. They're kind of dreamy, I think. Anything that's kind of sky or deep space kind of oriented. All right, so this one's really kind of really establishing and moving my color scheme along, I think. So this is going to make it really, in some ways, quick work of, you know, the shading that will come into play here very soon. But a lot of it will be already taken care of here. Just with 2 inks, basically. All right. This area in here needs to get a little bit more developed. I don't know. Sometimes like this, though, is not the thing to do it with. Colored pencils or something like that, if I'm going to do that, would be maybe a little bit more suitable for that. Oh, what I wanted to do too is I haven't been using too many of my alcohol pens, and I thought I would use some of that on here as well. I don't remember if I've done... That's why I stamped out these in just dye-based inks too, because if I did them in hybrids, I wouldn't be able to take an alcohol pen and color it, because the hybrid inks would just go right back into, you know, kind of solution, as they're part oil-based, I believe. And they're also very surface-oriented. Okay, I might get a little bit of smearing, but I think by and large the dye-based inks will be fine with a lot of the alcohol layering, if used. Let's see, what is that now? Are you going to do the same composition? Anything for the card, Debbie, in terms of your cat. Just explain to her that she's making memories, you know. Just say, I know you're going to hate it now, but, you know, you'll thank me later. Okay, Distress Ink, peeled paint. Let's start moving into some of the different hues in here that will establish. I'm thinking about some green hues back in here. It's going to look really muddy, okay? I'm going to use a lot of the paint pens and things like that to add a little bit of shimmer to it. I don't know. I always kind of hope things are going to come along. You know, well, it does start to look a little bit muddy, though, at times. And sometimes I even, you know, I'm wondering myself, is that, you know, is that going to come around? Okay, I'm just adding, I'm kind of tinting that brown tone there so you can see what that green looks like here, as opposed to none right here. Okay, and I'll have some of this going up in the tree as well. Okay. I'm putting it on the side of the tree. And I'll, like I said, this is going to be kind of light coming from within here. So these trees right here will be right side shaded. This is just too narrow right here, this trunk right here, so I'll do that with the pens or colored pencils. It's kind of nice to, not just to be only working in, like, say, dye-based inks these days. Because there's just so much other, other things you can do with multimedia, right? Okay, so coming into these trees as well. So the whole thing about these trees right in the background too is if you want some of them to be a little bit lighter, okay, like they're being illuminated by whatever light source you have up here, then just keep some a little bit lighter like that, okay? So just in general, it's like the top areas of them, where we're doing that kind of lighting retention, okay? Okay, like that. All right, and then we have all this area right in here. All right, so let me go really light down here because that area right in there could be potentially a little bit muddy. So kind of a stronger saturation over here and lighter saturation right here in the light areas so that I can, decide what I want to do with it, as I start coloring it in later on, as opposed to potentially going too dark with it and, then having to go, darker and darker in that area. Because you can make those types of color decisions later on if it's still kind of open. if you didn't close that off for yourself, myself. Which happens, to me. All right. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do in here too. Let's create a little bit more contrast and within this area of the meadow like this. Okay, so I'm just masking this off like that, and then that kind of reiterates these types of forms like this. See this right here? It's kind of the same shape and jagged kind of area that I've given this grass texture, and you're just doing the same type of thing with your coloring, okay? That, and we'll just keep doing this, we'll kind of establish some little variations within here, okay? Okay, so you see that right there? It's going a little bit light, or darker, light, dark, light, dark. I need to adjust my exposure here. I couldn't see. As this gets darker out here, my camera's like exposing, getting average readings, so you weren't able to see like the tones that I added in here anymore because these areas are getting darker. That's how you start there, huh, Jeannie? Well, you certainly have a vast knowledge of the imagery you have. That's one of those things. I mean, when people are first starting, you know what I mean? It's not, if they haven't used a lot of their imagery over time, so they don't have like this kind of a catalog, in their memory banks of, okay, oh, I can use that stamp right here. You know what I mean? Just those types of things start to reveal themselves to you. the more you use certain types of designs. But sometimes, there's just, like with me, I tend to forget about certain designs. It's not like, oh, I forgot I had it or something like that. It just doesn't occur to me to use it. But then I'll see someone use it. It's like, oh, I need to use that again. Because, or they've used it in a different way. All right, so these are the greens right here. This peel paint, I mean, there's temperature to it. It's yellowish, too, but it's still reasonably dull in terms of brightness. Okay, so I'm just saying in comparison to like other types of greens, like here's a super yellow green from Marvy. I'm going to use these ones in here to really start to brighten up the scene. Now, when I say brighten up, we're talking about intensity, not lightness, okay? Though it'll be getting things darker in terms of value. So that'll be the thing that we're adding now. We've added kind of shade and values in there. Now we're going for intensity differences in here. I mean, it's going to be darkening it in two. Okay, let me not go with this one quite yet. This one's like so extreme. This is one of those colors that I recommend to people if they want to brighten up, things, and they're going to be doing things like grass. Okay, this one I haven't used too much, but I think I had a new version of it or something like that I found that was unopened. So, but this is celery. Okay, but anything equivalent, you probably have, people have, pads from other companies and whatnot that are similar to this, but kind of a lighter green, warmer one. If you don't have certain colors too, what you can do is you can lay down one color and then add another color over the top of it, like browns, you know what I mean? If you have like only like a pale green or something like that, add that pale green over the top of, distress ink, antique linen or something like that, and you might get something kind of a similar intensity, maybe not the exact same color, but you're layering these colors on, so it's the purity of the color is just not going to really matter. Like, I'm adding celery over the top of whatever 3 colors at this point in time, So what this looks like, just inherently directly out of the pad, it doesn't even matter. So see, it's just brighter right here. Sometimes the brightest colors are in the shadow areas of things. These are getting a little bit dark in here, so I don't want to go too dark because I want to leave some room for those paint pens, I think. Although, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Maybe the paint pens aren't on the cards. Things are getting pretty well established here with the dye-based inks. I'm starting to think, do I need the alcohol pens? We'll see if they add a little bit of richness to it, especially like in the trunks, I think, though. All right, so that was the celery, jungle green, a little bit more of kind of an olive green. Now remember, as you move through these colors like this, especially if you're on your first color, you might be thinking, oh my God, this is going to take forever. But, when you get into these brighter tones and darker tones, you don't use them as much, so as your lightest of ones. So, those earlier colors just get you established, and they cover a wider area because you're doing it as an overall kind of base layer coat where, these colors start to get a lot more specific or used in specific areas on objects or areas and whatnot. All right, so this is the lighter green. This is where the scene potentially gets a little bit happier. When you have those brighter, warm tones like that, it tends to change the spirit of or it influences the spirit of the piece, okay? Yeah, but this one right here, the light green number 11 by Marvy. It's a super bright color, so even if you have it underneath some darker tones, it'll really increase potentially the overall brightness and just visual saturation of whatever colors you're using. Even if they are other Marvy colors that are duller than it, it brings that real warmth into these areas. And like I said, I don't know if I'll see kind of just a pure version of this by the time I move through my color schemes. I'm going to use some colored pencils over it and other things like that. So, but it should radiate through it all and give it a good amount of depth into those greens. So, yeah, and again, I mean, this is the one that I recommend because this is one I know. I don't know. There might be other really bright colors out there in terms of the green tones. I recommend the green tones because in scenic stamping, we happen to use a lot of blues, browns, and greens a lot in our scenarios, coloring scenarios, unless you're only doing things like blue foil or something like that, But if you're coloring a scene, those are good to have. So a nice bright blue, a nice rich deep brown, and green come in handy. I do recommend like a pink too for people, if you're doing like a sunsetty type of color scheme too. Okay, so that is it with the green, I think. I might add more later, but I have it creeping out here onto the road a little bit. Yeah, if you're doing this one, what you might do is decrease the height of it a little bit. So this is probably about the size of the other the rubber stamp versions. Unless you want to go, like I said, you can flip that upside down and continue it up like that. Uh-oh, I'm putting cats to sleep now. Nah, the cats would have slept anyways. You want me to sing it a lullaby? Hello, Miss Louise. Good to see you. Okay, so here's some browns. Speaking of browns, okay. Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if I need if I'm gonna need the alcohol inks. We'll see. We'll see if they can contribute to it, okay? So here's that brown that I was talking about, having a nice bright brown, but this is going through, the walnut stain and, or not going through, but it's, it's integrating with those by being on top. It's not physically integrating. It's not putting the other layers of ink back into solution. They're dry and soaked into it, but it's another layer, a transparent layer right over the top of it like that. See that? So if you have colors that are bright enough, they can influence a lot of kind of, whatever ends up being the end visuals of the piece. Okay. But again, that's what that brown looks like right there with all those other colors. And this is the brown otherwise. So you can see, I mean, that's a good rich tone like that, but this is so much deeper and, you know, it has a change of hue within there. There's a little bit of green and everything like that. I just think the variation on something like this just looks so much better than just one color, okay? I mean, you even see the pad right here. This pad is one color of brown, right? But you can see, I mean, there's different darknesses, there's highlights on it. This side is kind of washed out with the lighting on it, right? And this side is in the shadow is brighter, right? So you can see it just, you know, with everything around us, you know, so that's, you know, kind of what we're kind of going for here, you know, with the change of values and the layering and all that. And plus it makes it a lot easier. You know, you don't have to kind of keep everything separate from one another. You can just kind of blend colors into other colors too. And it just makes it a much easier process because you're not masking things off and trying to be so, you don't have to be careful about it at all. But look at this, you know, the lighting is really starting to come about, and, you know, these brighter colors like that on some of the trees, or some of the areas of the trees are just kind of bringing it out a little bit closer to us visually by changing the intensity of it. You can stop whenever, you know, you want on them. It's like, okay, I've achieved what I want to on that tree. I'm going to stop or whatever, you know. You can just keep working it like that. But you know, when you see it kind of that muddy version kind of in the beginning, you know, don't panic from it. You know, sometimes people give up. It's like, oh my God, you know, it's just not looking like that. But they say that like after like the third color or something like that, where maybe it was the fourth color for me, or a specific tone that brought that about, you know. But that just wasn't being achieved until I got to it. But you just kind of work up to it, you know, just keep adding to it. And it, you know, it should come about. Can it get real muddy? Yeah, and mine often do, but then I'll bring in other things into the mix, you know, paint pens and things like that, the white pigment ink. So it kind of goes through that kind of progression, kind of, you know, the foundation, kind of the establishment of color, brightness, and everything like that. Then it gets super muddy, and then I have to kind of repair all that. It's all part of the process. Just keep, you know, don't toss anything out, in other words. If something's not looking right, it just could be, you got to go all the way to black or something like that, you know? Like these ones right here are really going to look, I think, really cool when I start using black in there, like around in here. It's the color that I started off with, so it'll be the thing that really unifies things, even though these other colors are unifying pretty good, but it's often that same color that you established your darkest forms with will be the thing that really ties it all together. All right, so let's see. I haven't been reading. I like the big trees in the foreground. I'm glad you like those ones. It really added some big scale to these larger pieces right here, the full-size scenes and whatnot. You know, it's one of those things. I mean, these foamies open up certain doorways into certain types of surfaces too. If you want to work on watercolor paper or something like that too, the foamy stamp can contour into it. But just pure scale, I love it just for the pure scale too. I don't know, whatever, the depth of field and whatnot. I don't know, you know, it's scale. I guess it's scale contrasts, you know. Just from what I've known, you know what I mean, from using my stamps over the years. I don't know. It changes the look of the you know, kind of the, I guess the feel of the overall, like this image right here just looks different with this kind of a 9-inch tree trunk right there, I think. Okay, so this is brown, dark brown. It's the number 18 dark brown, like that. Pretty rich. I don't know if I'm leaving very much room for colored pencil work if I want to add that in there. Not that it has to be in there. You know, I just thought it would look good with it. But if it doesn't need it, then it doesn't need it. Okay, so right here with the darker brown, I'm going... I mean, I might add it kind of closer to this too, but for the most part, it's kind of going on the right-hand side of these trees, okay? And it'll be on the left-hand side, dominant of the the trees to the left of center, and lighting in here. Like this area in here really needs to get colored in though. Maybe that'll be the really good application for the colored pencils. You know, because I can go in with a really light touch throughout here. Okay. We'll need to soften up some of the base of these trees right in here, I think, with some additional imagery too. For a minute there, I forgot what color I was working with. I was thinking I was working with black. Okay, let's see. Let's make this tree pretty dark right here. Just as kind of a nice framing device for the overall composition. I was thinking about having some foliage coming in from the top here too, so if there's going to be some branches up here, maybe these areas of the trunks will be in kind of darkness. Like that. All right. So it's getting a little bit more dramatic, I would say. Drama in life, maybe not so desirable. Drama in scenes, good. Maybe not all the time. Not in terms of like an application thing. Want visual drama within scenes, you know, and nature types of visuals. We don't want drama like in, you know, blending some color or something like that and having trouble with that. Okay, this is black. Okay, it's not going on black though because these trees are, you know, there's a lot of moisture on these trees, so it's like dabbing in wet into moist right here, okay? But that makes it easier because it just blends in so much easier, having things a little bit moist like that. It just blends so much, you know what I mean? I don't even have to worry about it because everything's kind of still, you know, the surface area and the pulp of the paper is a little bit wet. Okay, there's a little bit too much contrast here. I'll do that with the pencils. Okay, but I think that is it for the inks for right now, at least. Okay, so here's the thing. If I'm going to stamp in that figure in here, if I want that figure in here, I'm going to do that now because I've made the mistake of waiting too long sometimes, and then I add colored pencils over that, where I can no longer add that figure in dye-based ink anymore because it won't stick to the colored pencil, the waxy colored pencils or something like that. Let's see, Linda goes in with multiple tones. Yeah, the multiple colors, huh, Linda? Makes it look so much richer of a surface and whatnot. Let's see. Oh, Candy, this is semi-gloss right here. Evolving away, huh, Linda? Well, yours you probably evolved too, right? I think Linda, your message there probably didn't send or something like that initially, right? Or wasn't getting posted. Because I was going to say you really like how these scenes evolve. Linda wanted to make a statement of scenic evolution right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp this little figure right here. It's kind of fun to stamp those figures in kind of right at the end. It's like the scene's done and then you stamp that in there and boom, you know what I mean? Drama, scenic drama. Or it's like the reveal or something like that. Okay, so, where, oh, okay. Maybe I should heat set this little figure after I stamp it out because I don't want to smear it. Okay. I never do this, on a separate piece of paper, but on this one, I just wanted to kind of give people kind of an idea of whatever compositional types of what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe ratio kind of relationships of where you place something in regards to the scale that it represents when you stamp something kind of familiar next to something. So people in landscapes make, you know what I mean? We know what size people generally are. So it can change the scale of an object. So like I said, if you stamp, that little figure down like this way, that tree by relation will be that much larger. Okay, so I stamped it around right here. So we'll add a little bit of shading, underneath it and so on and so forth. But, okay, so I wanted to play around with some alcohol inks. I tend to forget about these, and then when I do alcohol inks, I forget about the colored pencils and things like that. But let's try some of these right in here. All right. So this is... Apparently I colored something black the last time I used this. Beige. All right, so very light in value, okay. Oh, it just smeared my freshly stamped figure right there, so I'll stay away from that. But otherwise, it's not smearing anything that I can see. But just starting off with something very light like this, and I'm kind of giving it a base layer coat again, okay? But this in much more of a targeted area. Oh, I didn't go in it. I want to add in some colors up there too. Maybe some light blue or something like that. Perfect placement for perspective. Sounds like Dr. Zeus. we just watched like 3 versions of the Grinch. The classic one, then the live action, then there was it was like a computer animation one. All right, so that took care of that. All right. You probably couldn't tell anything that was happening with this one. It's such a light hue. Yeah, actually, it's brightening up all these trees right in here, though. I don't know if it's doing that permanently. It might kind of dry a little bit dull. I'm not sure. All right, now on these trees right here, on this one right here, let me get a little bit of tone added to that. And this really narrow one right here, not good for, paper towel coloring, so we can go right into it with this, no problem. Okay, looks like I am picking up some of that black ink. So I'm flipping my page around too like this because I can access these trees on this side of the scene so much easier from this way to this direction. So, always kind of add your pieces. This is my natural coloring motion right here. It's very ergonomic. Plus I can, you know what I mean? This isn't going to be a hassle or something like that, but I'm putting my hand right in the scene too. Okay. But with a lot of repetition of movement and everything like that, just move your scenes around in the direction that's going to be most conducive for the most comfortable application of whatever you're doing, especially if there's a lot of repetitive motion. Okay. All right, let's get this bridge a little bit. I should do my bridges like in red or something like that sometime. I'm usually doing them just like natural wood tones or something like that, but I don't know, they're usually painted, right? Okay, so the side of that bridge in tone, and then from the back to the front, I'm putting a little bit of color down like that, so that it's just not all mono-toned right there, okay? And I want the roof to be a little bit darker. The rooftop to be a little bit lighter, so I'm making the side of it a little bit darker so that by contrast, it looks like it's top lit now, okay? But do you see these areas again? It's going from a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, a little bit lighter right in here, darker, lighter right here, okay? So you can come around. Oops. Come around in here like that and create those different types of lighting kind of oscillations in there, okay? All right, let's move to a little bit more of a bluish tinge. Okay, so I have these lighter blues right here, just, so you can see some of the different color schemes that I'm going to be adding in here. So here's a little bit of this bluish tinge like that, okay? And we'll have a little bit more of that water out here. It's just a really super light blue. I might use this kind of in the pathway. I've mentioned that before. Not in this video, but I use some of those lighter tones like that. That light blue tone throughout my pieces. So like, I don't know, it just makes things a little bit more jewel-like. So I'm going to add a little bit of this bluish tinge right in here. And you can see if you can see it. But do you see that right there? How it's just not so stark white like that? You can see it, that's just pure white up there, but just adding that little bit of blue in here like this. Okay. It's a really good way to go. And in my colored pencil, it's like this color right here. Okay. So you'll see me utilize this for, I don't know, whatever temperature strategies. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Let me keep those blues handy there. Let's try this warmer tinge right here. It's a little bit more of a yellowish sunlight yellow. Maybe it's too yellowy, but let's add a little of this into here, like this. Okay. Again, we want to. I'm trying to keep, create something that's nice and kind of cheery, in a way. Very unlike, my personality. So it's like a pseudo cheeriness, right? Okay. But see, it's a little bit brighter in there, right? Yellowish tinge like that. Uh, I want to add that into this right here too, a little bit of that brightness, but I think I want to do that with the colored pencils because I think I'm going to have a lot more control over that. All right, let's see what we have here. Biscuit. I don't know. Do these trees look like they're a little bit richer in terms of the color schemes and brightness and variation, with each color that I lay down in there? I think they're looking a little bit more, I don't know, three-dimensional. The more I add down, I guess, you can, I'm sure, I can overdo it at some point in time, but it really takes a lot of effort to kind of overdo it to the point of like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It just, it ruined the piece, First of all, you can see as you're adding it down there, and it's not a huge value change at all, if any. It's just, you can see if you're adding in, if the color palette, within these forms looks better or not. I mean, it's just kind of like you're just tweaking it, like, like ever so slightly with each of these transparent tones. Like this is, you know what I mean? This isn't like too dark of a color, but there's all kinds of colors within, I don't know, just like multi-packs of these alcohol pens. I don't know, you guys might have, like a huge array of Copic markers that, that weren't in a set or something like that, but you might as well use them, You can use them for all kinds of things, This brownish gray here I'm using for my trees now, okay? So use it for all kinds of other things. Use it in your, I don't know, whatever blue scenarios or something like that, just to make it a little bit warmer. Okay, so I'm just trying to vary this little grassy area in here, so I'm doing like this type of thing. Boy, that sure looks dark on a white piece of paper though, doesn't it? Okay, and let's see. Maroon, I think I've used that before. I think this one was really dark. Or yeah, that one really stands out. This one's really red. Okay, it's this color right here. I'm going to add it in here, but I'm going to blend it out a little bit, or a lot, okay? I do like that color in there. But it's a little bit extreme, so we'll go with that, and let's go back to that brownish gray. And let's blend that out a little bit so we get the benefit of it, but it just won't be in its, super saturated form like that. It'll just get blended in. You can use your blender pen too. I'm just going back in with the color though, from the color scheme. Boy, that maroon really stands out. So however old these trees are, you want to add in one extra color of however old, whatever age they represent. So if they're like 100 years old, try to use about 100 layers of media over the top of it. Don't do that. Okay, let me see. I did add in some green onto those too, so I'm going to try some of this. Oh, that looks pretty good because it's, you know, we have that green down in that grassy area too. I might have kind of removed the possibility of using colored pencils on here because of the, you know, this alcohol ink kind of dries kind of that, you know, that slippery surface, you know, so I might have sealed off all the colored pen, you know, the tooth of the paper for something like colored pencils. And okay, so these alcohol inks are looking really shiny too, so it changes the you know, the texture. You can see how shiny those alcohol inks are. But once you spray seal this, that'll unify all that together, you know, with the dye-based inks and, you know, anything that's used on here. It'll be a unit, you know, a unifying whatever textural sealant on there. Okay, so let's go on now. Let's see. I don't know where to go here. Let's go on with some. Let me grab some greens right here. I really need to sharpen some of my pencils at this point in time. Brown. I want to address some things that are going on up in the sky area. So let's grab. I don't want to go too dark in that sky, I don't think. But let's go with some different values of blue. Okay. Oh, and yeah, definitely down in here. So brown tones, beige, flesh, or whatever. Like this. We need some kind of third hue in here. Maybe the blue will be the thing, but we'll see how it goes with the colored pencils, though. Or the paint pens too. Glad you like it, Jen. Okay. It's coming around. I'm still kind of learning how to use some of these larger forms too, because there's no way that I can go in and color like a smaller, you know what I mean, object. So I'm spending a lot more time with these, with the coloring on these art foamy versions of the stamps. Let me get this, clear out some space here. Let me work a little bit higher up here so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, so going back in with these brown tones into here. Yeah, I can't really see too many brown tones on the trees, but I think these trees look pretty well rendered. If not completely, you know, overkill. Not completely, but you know what I mean? There is a lot of tone and media on them. Okay, let me see if I can go in and add some shadow work into my little figures here. Figures, plural. It's the dog and the rider. Okay, this is a sienna brown, so kind of a medium tone brown. Okay, I'm trying to keep making a conscious effort not to over apply this, okay? Because I still want my kind of lighter areas in here, but I do want a little bit, or quite a bit more contrast, so I can make these changes in value more obvious, where it's going with, darker tones like down here and then lighter, darker, lighter. You just so it's not so, oh, I don't know. When you have a change of lighting, it changes distance and it changes, it represents a change in distance. I guess is the biggest thing. Like I said, like right back on this rooftop, you can make this a little bit darker in the back right there and have it go lighter in front, or you have it darker in here and have it go lighter in here, whatever way you want to. The objects don't seem so two-dimensional, okay? And you can really push dimension like here. So I'm darkening the sides of this. The back of this right in here is a little bit darker. I can go dark like this too, So it doesn't matter where you add that, those changes in value. Just as long as they're in there somewhere, it all looks good. So you don't have to kind of struggle about it. Just like right in here, I'm darkening some of those little grassy areas right in here. Let's see, let's go right here. All right, so you can have those little changes in value just in kind of the smallest or, little areas too. I'm just adding the brown right back in there, and, I'll go in with green as well. All right, this is, as I put my hand over these areas like this, that alcohol ink on there that's really built up is a little bit sticky. Okay, let's go in with the light green. Okay, so we can warm some of these areas up in here now too. So I'm just going to bring those trees to life a little bit. And the grassy area down here, okay. I'm not going to say, I'll try to not say like that happy grass or that happy tree right there. A la Bob Ross, if that's, if anyone didn't get that reference. But as I was doing that, I was thinking, okay, there, we have some happy grass here now. Okay. Yeah, it's really brightening it up right in here, isn't it, though? Kind of these brighter tones like this, too, and warmer tones. What you're doing is you're saying that there's kind of a warmer light kind of, cast upon the landscape. All right. Yeah, much easier to get into some of these little areas with a colored pencil, than, with a whatever applicator we happen to be using and, for the dye-based inks. Okay, so that was that. It's kind of that green, right? That I was talking about in the Marbies. It's, this is a similar type of tone right here that I recommend. So I guess if you have like something like this too, if you don't have something this bright, and if you're working on like a semi-gloss or a matte paper, you can use something like this to go in and brighten things up in here too. All right, so let's go and work some of the shadows with some darker greens now. See you, Debbie. Have a great rest of evening. Thanks for joining in. Go make that those it's a paw Christmas paw prints. Debbie's going to have her cat walk, dab into some like an embossing pad or a pigment ink and have her cat do little paw prints on a like a Christmas card and emboss them in silver, right? Then you need to get one of those stamps that say it's like a perfect Christmas or something like that. Viva Las Vegas stamps probably has some kind of stamp like that. They have so many word stamps for like everything. I think if people asked them if they had like a stamp for a certain word, and if they didn't have it, I think they were making it back in the day. Okay, so this is the darker green, so I'm kind of molding. Remember I was saying I was going to mold these kind of forms right here that we did with, kind of the paper towel, like right in here too. So I'm just kind of reiterating that, making it a little bit darker like this to kind of reiterate the whatever the changes in form within those spaces like that. And again, it's just better than just having it like one monochrome, monotone value throughout there. It makes it look more, I don't know, whatever, three-dimensional and deep of a space. Okay, I'm just making the trees above the mill, not mill, but the covered bridge a little bit darker to make the bridge kind of stand out a little bit more in terms of contrast and values. Okay. I'm thinking about stamping some things in here. If I do it, they're going to have to be done in stays on to stick to this amount of wax and alcohol on there. See that glariness to all those alcohol inks like that, but that should be what it looks like after kind of spray sealing like that. I should display things like this. It looks much more three-dimensional, like that. All right, so let's move up. I'm getting there in terms of. Oh, okay. This green. No wonder. I was going to say this green is about the same darkness as this one, but this green, I can feel it. It's a softer green, so it's applying more pigment or whatever wax to the surface here. So this is getting things a lot darker just because it's, this pencil is really soft. This color is really soft. So this one's a really good one here. This one's peacock green. Boy, this one's so soft, it's really applying right over the tops of the alcohol inks too. Hello, Paul. Good to see you. Thanks for jumping in and checking out the scene. It's coming around slowly but surely. All right, going in with a little bit more of this brown dye. I'm not sure if I already used this one, the sienna. I think I did, huh? It was sienna brown, or was it sienna something? All right. I'm looking for kind of refinements. I think I can use a lot more of a darker tone in here. Right over here, I think. Right, coming across right here. There's a lot of texturing in here with those pebbles. And I planned on kind of blending them in a lot more. So blending them in doesn't mean just going over it with like a, you know, super dark tones so you can't see them anymore, but it would be good to decrease the contrast between the paper down there and all those different types of rocks right in here. So, and again, I'm not just going to do it with just black. Again, I want to, it was kind of anemic underneath here, so I'm adding in some more of this tone here first, some of the lighter tones. Okay, and let's try this one right here. I think this one's a little bit of a harder lead, so I don't know. It's applying okay. I guess it's because I don't have any much color down there. So this one's a burnt sienna. I think that was one of my favorite colors in painting classes a gazillion years ago. All right. Much more of a thicker application with the burnt sienna. This burnt sienna is kind of a harder lead, so I'm able to apply it more freely all over the place because it's not applying so fast like that green, that peacock green. All right, there we go. I think about like that, and okay, let's go in and let's bring in a little bit more blue tones up in our sky area. It's going to be applied over the top of that base layer of tone that was applied in there, which also includes like some of the black that it was kind of smudging around everywhere. So keep that in mind. I like this combination of this color blue and that undercolor of warmth. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of a grayish, you know, overcast looking, I don't know, whatever color scheme. Remember, sometimes the brightest of colors are on kind of a, less than, strongly lit day or time of day, because the colors aren't so washed out. Okay, so that was light blue. And this is that blue that I used earlier, the aquamarine. Okay, so I want more of this here and there. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit on that rooftop right in here, and it will bring a little bit more into my pathway. Like about like so. You see that little shimmer like that, doesn't it? It's like a really barely visible tone in there, but I think it really adds to that, just that color scheme right in here. I don't know what it is, but a little bit of blue kind of within, I don't know, that area there. It's kind of a warm blue, though. I guess it has a little bit of yellow in it. It's kind of a little more of a, kind of like a Caribbean blue. It just makes that area look a little bit more full, I would say. Okay, so let's see. Green. Ooh, is this that peacock? Yeah, this is that peacock green. I need to be careful about that one. And black. Framing off the piece a little bit more. Adding in some more that little extra contrast and shadow work. Oh, this looks really good in the trees, I think, in the trunks. I'll anchor the trunk down a little bit. Trunks. What I do on my trunks is I kind of plant them in there a little bit more. I kind of angle this down a little bit and then come up into the trunk like that. Okay. So you add a little bit down at the base and then come into it like that. This black is surprisingly pretty soft. It's really applying very easily over the top of, wherever I want to apply it. All right. There's your colored pencil layering on there. I'm seeing if I think I want to add anything else in there. I think the covered bridge, though, it doesn't have the, it's looking a little bit anemic to me, especially just in comparison to these trees. These trees are just so rich in terms of colors. blaring on there, so let's see if, I don't want to change it too much, but I just want to model it a little bit more. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Kind of anemia, you know, it isn't great in terms of a kind of description of a focal point. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to some of that brighter, you know, tone right here. This might be good. It might give it kind of the, you know, the bridge, kind of something in common with the trees, you know, having a little bit of that similar type of value to it, or color. Because, I don't know, if these trees are around there and they're native, it's probably the thing that that bridge would have been made from, I guess. So you can create a little bit of a connection between the two, having that similar color scheme like that. All right, there we go. I think that's a little bit better. All right. Here's some colors that have been used in the scene, okay? And let's go in and add some of that into the brighter areas, the lighter areas, I should say. Hello, Shelley. Good to see you. Nah, you don't need to go back, Shelley. You didn't miss anything. You're here for the best parts right here, the funnest parts. Oranges and yellows to your distant trees. Linda, this isn't a fall tone scene. It's more of a springtime type of scene. So that would be good, but I've already added all the greens to it. I wanted it to be the next season coming up here. For all any of those that are, you know, that have had it with the cold, if it's cold where they're at. All right, so we're going in, and I need to mix up some of these colors for this color scheme. I'm banging this on my table here because I think that gives it a little bit more of a jolt, you know, in terms of an expeditious kind of blending of media. Sorry if that's kind of irritating there. And I don't want to use that one right there. Okay, so let's go in and start doing some of this. I'm wondering about these like larger ones, if this is going to be too bold. Keep in mind as I start doing this, I always give a little bit of a warning that it's going to be, it could be potentially a shocking kind of out of place looking texture, but if you add it kind of throughout the whole piece and you let it be known that this is representing a certain type of thing, meaning lighting, then it tends to make a little bit more sense than just doing it, you know, in isolated kind of dabbling of it. Like if I add a couple little dots like that, there's no other textures in this whole piece like that. So just, you know, it looks totally out of place. So keep that in mind, or if you ever do this type of thing, you know, that's the way it will look initially. Until you, like I said, until you establish it as a, you know, kind of a whatever, a textual form or a lighting statement, okay? Okay, so this is the 3mm paint pen, so quite extreme, pretty big. Yeah, this is the type of little pen that's used to, for kids to, or whatever adults to use on like rocks outside to do rock art, which I'd never even heard of until I started looking into these types of pens. And this is an acrylic paint pen. Those are the paint pens that I'll be using. I do have some oil-based ones, and I need to explore those a little bit more. I tried them once, and they weren't too much different. I thought they'd be a lot more opaque than the acrylic pens, but they really weren't. So haven't really explored them much further. But I don't know. I need to give them another shot and see, because sometimes I'm going for a lot more opacity, and these ones right here go on really light if you're putting them over something dark, but then they dry darker than what they look like when they were freshly applied. So if you're going for something really light, that's not great, but in terms of the blending of imagery, it's pretty good for this purpose, because it kind of harmonizes with the surfaces a little bit better, being slightly translucent to transparent. Okay, not really transparent, but it moves in that direction from a fairly opaque looking mark when applied. All right, so this is lighter. It's a light green, and I'm adding it in these lighter areas like this. This gets a little bit into shadow right here, so I'm going to use the finer one for that. But in these areas that are kind of well illuminated, I'm using the 3mm just because it's just going to be so much faster to do that. And plus we can get a little bit of size variation in this type of detailing too, which isn't bad. Sometimes this is a little bit too much though if it's on like a quarter page card or something of that sort, much smaller. All right, so that was the light green 3mm. This one's I don't know, like a 50% green in the 0.7mm. I'll see where this falls when I start adding it in here. Yeah, it's not very visible. I thought I might add in some shadow work in here, but in the darker areas of the trees like this kind of more neutral 50% value of green could potentially be highlighting down here where it's being applied over a darker background. Okay. Whereas if I use this one down here in this area, maybe it'd just be too extreme. It would the dots would stand out just a little bit too much and be distracting. So sometimes you use, a darker value down there, or you highlight darker in the darker areas. Shelly, this is a semi-gloss cardstock, and it's 8.25 by 8 by 10.5. I cut off a half inch off the length and width, and this one happens to be the Mohawk Everyday Digital. But as I've mentioned in some other videos, for me, in terms of just about all of the different semi-gloss papers, the silks, the dull, the satins, I find those to be pretty consistent in terms of the surface quality and how they take to media. So what I'm getting at is I think any brand would be fine. The Hamel Co. worked really well. That one's at least was, I was going to say readily available, like on Amazon. You can buy it in, I think, packs of 50 as well. Some of the other packs of you go by the ream. But that one worked fine in both gloss and semi-gloss. I don't know why that Hamel Co. gloss looks exactly like a semi-gloss though. So even that, the Hamel code would be fine. All right, so I'm adding a little bit more of this green. I didn't think I would when I was up here, but I think this looks pretty good down in here. I know you can't really see it too well, but maybe you can see a little bit in the kind of the shaded area down here. I'm adding that just to create a little bit of a extra shimmery texture that's not so visible, because I'm applying it in areas that are roughly the same value to it, but it's just giving a little bit of extra texturing, which I think adds to a little bit more of a shimmery type of look, kind of in the end result. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the fine tip. The fine tip, the extra fine tip, light green, where I can go in and add much more detailing. And it's looking pretty textural in here too, but we'll mellow that out with the white pigment ink to come. But there's these little bits of kind of like sparkly light that are on those trees, I think just really kind of brings everything out really nicely. It gives shimmer to deciduous trees too. Kind of represents like all those little leaves kind of reflecting light back at you. Look, especially like in fall, which this is not, doesn't represent here, but okay, I think I've taken in some wax or something into my pen, so just kind of scribble it out a little bit. Yeah, I might have gotten some wax up into the tip there, or some of that alcohol. Let me see here. There we go. When all fails, just give your tools a good whacking, right? All right. This for me, this pen right now, this pen to me is like really starting to, it's like bringing the scene kind of to life in many ways. I mean, again, there's a different spirit to it, without it, and I thought that would look pretty good, but this is kind of aiming the piece in a direction that I was kind of thinking about, my initial kind of thought in terms of, I don't know, just lighting, I guess, and I don't know, kind of whatever, the emotional mood of the piece, I guess you can say. Now, Linda D, were you talking to me there, or were you asking me the Wabbit stamp? Did you just learn how to unclog your pen, Jeannie? Just take it and give it a good, show it who's boss, you know? You're trying to be too nice to it, you know, asking it please and, you know, stuff like that, you know, which you go through first, but if that doesn't work, then you know what to do. Um, in an 8.5 by 11, with a lot of deciduous trees and grass, you got the potential for a lot of dots. I'm finding a lot of dot opportunities. So if you like adding little dots to your pieces, this would be a good scene for you. Does anyone have a Cricut? You know, the cutter? I was wondering if there's a Cricut template for like a puzzle. Because it'd be kind of fun to, you know, I mean, if you do these larger scenes like this, or even, I guess, smaller ones, well, they wouldn't have a template for a gigantic, unless you can blow up the, you know, I guess you can blow up the pieces or something like that, but you print this out on something and you go, you know, you have that Cricut kind of cut them out, right? And you can have like a cool little puzzle of your own stamped pieces, which would be kind of cool. Okay, so that is that. Be sure and, you know, if you use this, like a green like this, be sure and do, you know, 1,000 dots of color on the nose. Don't go like above or below that, right? I was trying to decide if I should tell people I'm just joking or not. I think I'm not going to say that anymore. Okay, this area right in here needs a little bit of textural forms. We added a lot of tone to it. Okay, here's kind of a larger piece like this. Let's add some of this texturing down here. Okay, so it's going to be kind of lighting and illumination. I'm not going to go too deep into that because these dots will really stand out, but I want to add a lot of it like a right around in the area that's roughly the same value in terms of light and dark as this color. Okay, so it's just kind of breaking up that, you know, my colored pencil and what I don't know, the alcohol inks and the dye-based inks that have been wiped in there that aren't really, you know, that gracefully applied. If I, you know, was able to zoom in on this without it kind of going, it's going out of focus. Flipping off, not flipping off you, flipping off the off switch, back on. If I can zoom in, you know, in those areas, it's not been terribly gracefully applied in there. So you go back in with something like this, and then later on with the white pigment ink, and it all looks like, you know, kind of expertly applied. Because you're covering it all up and obscuring it, right? in some ways it's like that's my kind of secret to doing these types of things like this, except it's not a secret. I'm showing everyone in real time, but and you don't have to be, like I said, like I don't know, I got something, it was with the I don't even know where it is. With this sedge filler down here, it was really roughly applied everywhere, but in the end it really doesn't matter. But there was like some kind of really distinct applications of it right in here that I didn't really like. So it's just like you just kind of cover it up, not necessarily like in the beginning, but with these kind of final touches that you can add on here, and especially with the white pigment ink, it's you can really obscure those types of things that aren't, necessarily the strong point of the piece, that you don't might not want people to notice or whatever. And believe me, there's a lot of things that I do where I'm not really thinking about it too much because it's just part of the process for me. But there's plenty of things in my process that wasn't necessarily intentional, and if not, it was downright detrimental to the overall kind of finish of a scene. So I just cover it up, or just obscure it. I don't cover it up 100%, but I definitely there's a lot of obscuring of applications, all the time. This is a white pen, by the way. So adding in that final bit of contrast into these textures, okay? And plus, all that stuff, all those things that I might be doing to obscure and cover things up, it ends up adding to the overall look anyways because it's extra texture. So the biggest thing, that I'm always trying to kind of emphasize in any of the pieces I'm working on is, you don't, try to just allow things to develop, and whether or not you trust the process or not, just let the process kind of keep evolving and run through your layering and media and all that type of stuff and see how it comes out in the end. Okay. Don't obsess over like a smudgy little imprint of something that happened in the first stage, because chances are it'll probably get covered up or obscured, or you just won't be thinking about it, by the end anyways, with all the other things that are happening throughout the piece. Okay, going in, and I'm kind of defining some of these rocks. There's a lot of these rocks that are within this little area, but I didn't want to work around them with my dye-based inks and all that type of thing. So I'm just kind of reclaiming them with the white at this point in time. So, I wasn't worried about like green rocks throughout this whole area in here. Okay, you can see them right here. I don't know if you can see that actually, but there's rocks within these grassy areas right in here. You can kind of see it right here, here, and here. And you can see them in the background right there. Like these rocks in the background right here became blue because I just went over it with, blue ink, but you just kind of go back in and just reclaim them at the end. But that was easier than working around all of these tiny little objects. This focus is driving me nuts. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot. Okay, so I like some of these trees to have a little bit more of a, structure with trunks and branches. This is really clogging my pens here, working over all this media like this. So. Okay. Okay. So I put some of those kind of highlights on some of these trunks in here. branches, which are in the design itself, so you can just kind of look for that. But if you can't see them because of all the media that you've applied over the top of it, then you just kind of add them in there, just you know, where they might not have existed. Okay. All right. There's that. A little bit more white right here. I guess these can represent highlights, but they can also represent little flowers kind of in the on the grasses. I don't know, whatever, pearly everlasting or something. Okay, I'm going to add some highlights back into these trees that are white too. I'm kind of adding it right over the areas where I've used the light green one, okay? But this is going to create more contrast. We'll have a little bit more of it towards the top of the tree where it's maybe more illuminated from overhead lighting, and less dots kind of low. All right, it's kind of nice and shimmery in there now, isn't it? Maybe it's Edelweiss. I just watched that movie fairly recently. Not the whole thing, but I don't know, I just flipped it on. Okay, so there we go. That's looking like a fun little kind of entry point. Oh, on our fences, yeah, I don't know. A lot of times I add a little highlighting to my fences. Maybe I'll do it a little bit here. Yeah, I'll add it to the point where they're kind of going out into the light. But then I'll have the back end a little bit darker. But do you see that right there? Do you see the difference between this fence and this fence? Just with that little bit of highlighting on top, like that. All right, we got clogging again. And again, these highlights are on the design itself, but I just colored, you know, there's all those greens and everything, and browns right over the, you know, that were applied right over the top of it, so they're a little bit more illuminated in this lit area right in here. All right, so let's see. All right, now the fun begins. With our white pigment ink kind of finishing touches. Now we can have fun, you know. The whole thing's fun, but I really love doing these little finishing touches a lot of times. Oh, okay, so as I was doing that too, in these little meadowy areas, I was thinking, I think I'm gonna add in a little bit punch of some colors. I usually go with like purple, and that would be a good one to do. And I'm going to use some orange. Maybe the orange represents some poppies or something like that. You can do multiple colors too. Like out here in California, there's a lot of poppies, lupin, and I don't know, whatever color whatever these little white ones are. But you see these in the areas, and it's really really spectacular, especially the lupin and the poppy over hillsides, and it's just like just painted hills, rolling hills in some areas. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of group these here and there. Or cluster, I should say. All right. I don't know if you can see that in there. I'll try to bring this up a little bit closer, but do you see that orange little splashes throughout there? And color always harmonizes really well with greens. You know, purples, pinks, everything. Blue, you know, would look great in there. I don't know. I wouldn't do like every color probably, but like I said, you can run more than one different type of wildflower into the mix if that's what it represents. I always find flowers right around the base of kind of objects. I don't know, it's where they get more water kind of flowing down from objects, like around little things like that, you know, that get more water in those areas or what. Okay, so here comes the white here. Get those pens working for you, Jeannie. With your work, do you work with the pen with the .7s a lot on yours, or is it mostly like paint brushes? I can't imagine you going with the paint pens with all that you know, the Dr. Martens that you're applying, and they would just be too thick. It would clog up the pens like instantly, unless you went with the pens first. Okay, so we're going to change some texturing in here with the white. We'll be pushing space in terms of making some areas lighter and whatnot, but it'll mostly be applied in areas where there was a retention of some of the white in there already, or just lighter areas. Okay, it doesn't have to be white. Okay, so just taking a cotton ball, smashing it down about like so. Okay, I'll zoom in as far as I can here. Oh, okay. And this little horizon right here has a little bit of white on there, so applied it in, use a very light touch, you know, just to get a feel for how much ink is being applied to, okay? Now, if you're applying white over light or white, it's not going to show up too much, so you creep that into the objects or areas around it, okay? And utilize the dry version of it too. And you get that kind of that textural and value change like that. And it just looks like lighting is kind of, you know, kind of pouring over the tops of things. And you can have that same kind of atmospheric types of variation kind of within your objects in and about your scene, wherever you want it to go. Okay, so right around my figure there is kind of walking through a little bit of a mist or fog. Okay, and there's fog on the pathway here. It just makes it softer and a lot more inviting. Like I was saying in previous videos, you know, when people are well, they're buying LED bulbs these days, but you know, usually when you got incandescent bulbs, you know, a lot of people would, given the choice, you're going for soft white, you know, because soft lighting is just a lot more kind of relaxing to the eyes. So adding in this little bit of fog around this fence here. See, when you do something like that, it really bends this fence around like that. Let me put a little bit of it right here. it creates distance within this form right there by varying value, light and dark, like we did up here. But now we're doing it kind of from a textural standpoint too. Kind of right around the water's edge, maybe. You know, that little creek down there. All right. And these areas in here are going to dry darker than what they look like when they're freshly applied too. So keep that in mind. You have to go a little bit lighter. And then especially because I'm going to spray seal this too, this white pigment ink gets much, I don't know, more see-through when you apply that. So keep that in mind as well. If you lose too much of it upon spray sealing, if you do spray seal, then just apply some more right over the top of the spray seal, okay? All right, see that it's kind of a little more dreamy looking, I think, too, when you do some of this. Just having some softer textures too. It just really makes things a lot more inviting looking, I think, and friendly, I guess. It's light, you know. People want to go into the light. Except on Poltergeist, the movie. Okay. All right, now, let's see. I'm going to add a little bit more texturing in here. Through all that, I was thinking, okay, I was going to use I thought I was going to use, I can use my VersaFine Clair because this is on the semi-gloss. I was going to use the Brilliance, but I think let's go for the Clair, you know, the oil-based pigment ink, super black, and should apply over the top of the waxy and alcohol ink forms, I think. Yeah, it applies no problem. There's always a question is if, you know, some ink is going to adhere and apply over something. Like alcohol over wax or something like that, you know, pens. So, of course, if it doesn't apply, then you can always switch up, you know. All right, so there's a little bit of grass texture right there in the foreground. You can't really see it too much because I don't want to represent, you know, too much grass like on the road, right? But let's put a little bit of texturing up in the corners right here just to soften these angles like that up there. I'm looking for my smaller acrylic. My acrylic blocks are getting lost here. Here, this is this one. Here, I'll just use this bigger one. This is too big. Where did my other block go? Yeah, it's right in front of my face somewhere because I found all my blocks before I started this video, and now they're lost. Someone stole the block while I wasn't looking. All right. Let's have some overhanging foliage coming into here. No, it's not the foliage, you know. I don't know. We're saying that there's other trees here. These aren't pines. I could use my pine bows in here. There's just a little bit of texturing right up here. And we'll go right here. And a little bit right there. And let's see. Let's take a look and see if anything else needs to be done. You can rent it for the holiday, Linda D. There's a Stampscapes, enter Stampscapes in the coupon form. What do they call those rentals? I forgot what it was. Airbnb. All right, let me see here. I used to have a Cricut, and yes, I do, but they have a puzzle option. Isn't that a great idea with the puzzle option there, you know, for your scenes, especially that we're doing these large scenes, you know. I think it'd be fun to do a puzzle like that, so made out of these pieces like this. You got to put in those finishing touches, Linda. Of course, your pieces look fine with, you know, with whatever you're doing. But I really like the white in there again, and you know, those little touches like that. I mean, if I didn't have like these little, like illuminated little things like that, it would just have a slightly different feel to it. I think it looked fine without it though too. But those little types of things like that, it's like. One of the things, I guess what it is one of these things, little elements like this. This is really light and very detailed, right? You know, these little dots. And it's, you know, it's very crisp. But then this is also, you know, the white pigment ink is also light, but it's very diffused. It's creating this greater range between textures. We have something really soft and something really crisp. So if, say, there's a textural range like this within a piece, you know, between coloring and everything like that, the impressions are fairly crisp. What you're doing is you're expanding it out, but you're also expanding out the range of value too. So things are even lighter with the addition of like a white dot or something like that throughout the pieces. So it's just kind of an expansion of, you know, kind of the extremes, I guess, you know, and it might just be a 5% type of expansion from a textural range, though it's really huge with that, that softness added into those areas like that. So from the textural range, it's like, boom, you know, it's like super wide like that. And it's more of a kind of a defined positive textural range, because sometimes I get like really soft forms that are kind of muddled with the amount of ink that we might use on there. So, you know, this is a much more kind of, you know, nice desirable softness to it, as opposed, like again, as opposed to kind of just muddled from you know, going crazy with, coloring, which I often do. Okay, because I want those different values in there, and different. I want those different whatever color, the changes in hue and value within, these types of forms like that. So, but it can get a little muddled, especially in the grasses. I get muddled all the time down there. So, the pen and the white pigment ink remedy all that for me. I don't have to worry about my application methodology and how things are looking, because it's not going to be maybe the end result that's the foremost visual. You know what I mean? Certain things might still be there, but the attention's going to be in those areas that are kind of more lively with those little touches like that. So yeah. Let's see. Hello, Laura. Good to see you. You got here, you got here at the right time, Laura. You got here with the fun part, the white pigment ink at the end. Okay, so recap on this one. Yeah, just a lot of stuff went into the coloring of these trees and whatever. I was experimenting around with some different inks. So there's dye-based inks, alcohol inks, colored pencils like on these trees. I don't know, you know what I mean? I mean, they go through a certain type of process. I might have been overdoing it, and it probably didn't need it either on some of those trees. I could probably have done without, I don't know, whatever, 5, 6 layers of whatever media were being applied there, maybe more, with the amount of alcohol inks. But I wanted to see where it would go, I wasn't quite sure. So there's some types of techniques that I'm doing on these things that are just different that I wanted to explore. But I don't know, kind of an extreme version of this road coming out here on the larger type of formatting right here. But again, with the foamy trees too, just working with larger scale and pushing depth within this piece. In relation to this, I mean, this is not a small stamp right here. That's a really big stamp, right here. I mean, it's like, it's the size of like it's bigger than a pad, but it's just strange seeing it in this context with these trees right here. This one, I mean, looking at it, almost looks like the smaller version. Okay. Okay, so if you don't have those foamy ones too, one of the things is too, Linda, is you can just go with the smaller version of this too, and then go with the, the 4-inch trunks, and it'll be, go with the half page scene and do the same type of thing. Scale is going to be a little bit different, but, it'll be the same, it'll be the same composition there. So, yeah. Shelley wants every one of the stamps that used here. I used 1,000 stamps in this scene. I'll have them listed out later on, either tonight or tomorrow. When I'm putting all the description into these scenes after the thing, it's like, what stamp did I use over there? I have to look at the scene again because I forgot. But yeah. Yeah, Shelley, the fog adds, it's the calmness to it, right? And it's illumination, and it's, it's more of a peaceful type of emotion, I think. When you add in, it can be a little bit, it doesn't have to be everywhere, but if you add in a little bit of that towards the end. And if you've never done that before, one of the things I should say is a lot of times, it doesn't have to be the Brilliance ink, it could be any white pigment ink, but the biggest thing is that I'm applying it in a fairly light touch. But here's what everyone does at first. If they listen to me and they really dry it off and apply a really light touch, okay, which is what they should do, they go for a couple taps and there's nothing showing. So they squeeze it down and there's a big blob. Or they go into it and then just go straight on there and then there's a big blob. But apply it in a very light tone. Think of it like you're applying dry media, like a powder, to the scene, and that's kind of the spirit in which you're adding this on there because you want a very light application of it to be nice, light and airy, where you can see, the object underneath it like that. And you're applying it in the light area, and then you're creeping it into darker areas right next to it or darker objects right next to it. So I'm not putting it down here, in other words, you know what I mean? Or if I did, I'd have to kind of creep it over from the light. You got to work it over from the light. Hello, bugs. Glad you like it, Linda. But that's the way it should always be, right? You know what I mean? I don't know if I feel that way when I'm doing these things, but it's like we want to learn something new or something like that. I don't always think different scenarios are going to work either, especially with the new media, especially. Like I want to try something with that blue holographic and going into the experiment. Oh, what I wanted to do on the blue holographic was something like this, okay, but in a mirror card. And so this would be like the top portion of the scene, and then the mirrored portion would be down here. But I was thinking, I want to create on that mirrored portion down here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So the covered bridge is up here, and then this is the road, but with kind of water flanking both sides. But I'm going to have to do that white pigmenting down here and build out kind of this road area going right here. So you'd have that, the reflected sky area like down here in the water, which would be that, that blue holographic color or something like, you know what I mean? Or something like the this thing right here. So it'd be down in the water. So in other words, this was, it's going to have to be a longer piece like this, like a slimline card. And then we want that road going across here, you know what I mean? Continuing out on the mirrored section, but we had to block all this out. So I got to figure out how to do that one. But yeah. Going back to your comment, I'm not thinking about like a better scene or something like that, but I want to do something a little bit different than what I've done in the past. So on this one right here, my inclination were to do kind of springy or fall tones or something like that. But I just wanted to do it in green just because, I've done the fall foliage before, and I just wanted to try that, see what those greens would look like in combination with the browns too. So yeah. But yeah, and there weren't a huge amount of stamps used on this one though, Shelley. Really, it was, what was it? It was the covered bridge. I used the sedge filler. I just filled in with this one up top there. These little treetops are right around in here. And what difference? Well, okay, so I used the fences right here. These trees, these leafless trees are right here, here, and here. And these are the foamy stamps, but this one is, stamp. No, okay, that was a different size one. I mean, there was a few in here, but there weren't like there's not like 20 stamps in here or something like that. I don't know if there were even 10. But yeah, I really like this one. I think it's really fun, and I like seeing new things too. So, like I said, these trees right here are just dwarfing that huge stamp right there. Normally that stamp right there it's such a dominant, huge, I mean, it's the focal point of the scene, but it's just dwarfed by, this like stamp like this big, I mean, this scene could have even been bigger. It could have even done it on the full page like that, but and it's just kind of bizarre seeing that in this context right here. So interesting. All right, but did you so if people, I don't know, if you miraculously made it through the entire scene, you saw how kind of muddy, certain times it got in here, and this road, you know what I mean? The road for me wasn't really resolved very well, but I think the colored pencils, were a big help for me in just rendering out some, I don't know, some different, that oscillation of light and dark throughout here looked better with the colored pencils. So, use whatever medium is going to work for you the best for whatever application you need it for. So I couldn't get it really that well because there was such a big. I'm not really good with gigantic open areas with dye-based inks. You know what I mean? Applying it with like, in this case, paper towels. But I used to do it with the stylus tools. So I'm finding that nice stuff like the colored pencils and the alcohol inks, are really good for that in just varying my whatever textures and distance and big open areas, like I said. So those areas are usually sky for me. But yeah, I don't know. The colored pencils really worked really well for that. Couldn't do it before, because I was doing just about everything and like glossy cardstocks. But I don't know. I think we get a lot of vibrancy with the semi-glosses in terms of the color intensity. But you can also use the soft mediums on here, like colored pencils, chalks, pastels, and all that type of thing. Limited because it's not super, it's not a textured paper or anything like that, but they will apply on there if they're soft enough. So, yeah. Your aim is to make a frame project for all my family. That sounds good, Linda. This piece right here, CM, is 8 by 10.5. I cut a 1/2 inch off each side so that I can, I'll mat it on something, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I'm not going to mat it on just straight black like this, but I don't know, it gives me a little bit of a 1/4 inch around the entire perimeter like that. Now that's just black. Like I said, I'm not going to do it in black, but my mistake in the past is doing full 8.5 by 11, and then I don't have anything to mat it with, because I only have 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. I don't have like 12 by 12 or stuff like that, to mat it with. So I gave myself a little bit of a. Actually, that black doesn't look too bad. This is just a flat black, matte cardstock right there. But yeah. Linda B, itching to get to these huge stamps, sadly out to wait. Yeah, get that arm and hand rehabilitated there, Linda. Get some movement in it, and whatnot. What's the difference between the foam stamps and the rubber ones? Well, the foam stamps of Stampscapes, okay, the Stampscapes ones, they're just larger, okay? This one right here, this is a 9-inch stamp right here, top to bottom. That would be really hard to get an impression from in rubber stamp form. You know what I mean? I mean, I have large stamps, but you just have, you have to stand up and you have to press into them, right? And that's like for like a 3 by 4.5 inch one. I recommend people stand up. I do have the Seaside Cove, which is really big, but I've done like videos on how to get really good impressions from it. But the foamy ones, just the nature of kind of a pliable, surface like this, or I don't know, not pliable, but I don't know, compressible, right? You can use these foam stamps to get into like papers that have more tooth to them and texture, right? Maybe not the most hardcore of like watercolor papers that are super textured or something like that, but I guess you could. They would have the best chance because you can press into it like that. Okay, so I when the art foamies folks, KP asked me, she said, hey, we want to do, we really be interested in doing a line of nature stuff. I said, well, there's no point in doing it the same size as the rubber stamp versions because the rubber stamp versions have more detail in them, okay? They can't get as much detail into, a foam laser cut stamp. So the smaller ones, more detail, larger ones, easier to use, and for scale too, you know what I mean? And if you're doing, okay, so with the art foamies, if we're only going to do standard card size, 1/4 page, 4 1/4 by 5.5, you know what I mean? You probably wouldn't get the art foamies for that, So I would say the art foamies, they're ideal sweet spot are probably half-page scenes and up. Okay. I mean, this would be cool to use in some sort of different scenario, but I'm not going to use it a ton in quarter page. You know, this is a quarter page card right here. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be using this stamp in a quarter page scene like that. So, you know, maybe not as universal. So larger scenes like this, though, this makes really quick work of, you know, these letter size, practically letter size scenes, or even, you know, I did that almost 11 by 17 piece. And when you're filling in with large stamps like this, you know, you want to do a scene for your wall or something like that, you know. These are really perfect for that because they really make quick work of the stamping portion of it at least. But again, it's about, you know, if you use them in conjunction with the rubber stamps or smaller versions of things, they really push distance, you know, in a very dramatic way. So I really like that aspect of them. So they want to do another couple designs. So I'm going to go through the you know, the existing foam stamps that they have right now and see if there's anything that's, you know, standing out noticeably in terms of adding that into the mix pretty soon. So yeah, I don't know what that might be though. The fun ones would work great for scrapbook pages. Yeah, that would be, Jen. I really like that. I saw them doing the art foamies in a journal too. Now that I think about it, not the Stampscapes ones, but I saw that in their video, their YouTube videos right there. So it'd be perfect for that. Yeah, that's what I would do. I would do. I would really like. Sometimes, you know, getting a really good impression with a rubber stamp, like I said, on the more of those tooth surfaces, you know, can be a challenge, especially if you want to get them really dark. Okay, so that's another thing with the art foamies too. They stamp a lot of these things in like paints too. So black gesso, um, those what do you call them? Those like these ink tense blocks. You know what? So they do is they wet this right here, and they just take these ink tense blocks and then they color, you know, right onto, maybe not this tree trunk, but I'm just saying in general, they color onto this, and then they go for those impressions like that. So you can do that, you know, that's the difference between the foam stamp too and like a rubber stamp. You know, I don't think you're going to be rubbing like an ink tense, you know, into a piece of, you know, rubber like this and then stamping it. I guess you could, but I'm just not quite sure of how that's going to work like an absorbent surface like this would be with that type of media. So yeah, different types of media as well, which I haven't experimented with yet. I did use a little bit of that Inktense block on my first experiment, but I haven't been playing around with the different types of surfaces with these foam blocks yet. So that's yet to come. All right, so I'll be spray sealing these pieces right here. If you notice, there's a dull kind of sheen to this, and that's from the colored pencils that were added in there. But you know, when I spray seal these, I don't know, it doesn't look too bad in terms of the textures, but the colored pencils do kind of dry in that dull waxy sheen, but you spray seal that and everything should unify a little bit more or a lot more with an acrylic coating on here. My question is that, you know, when I'm doing these on this paper that's, you know, that's not glossy and I'm spraying with a gloss, maybe I should be spraying with more of like a satin coat, you know, to keep more of the spirit of the actual paper, you know, unless I want it more glossy. But sometimes, you know, you want it kind of more of a satiny or like a, you know, a flat finish, you know, because it has its own certain look to it. But spray sealing will bring out higher degrees of saturation within the colors, though. It'll just unify it more in terms of, you know, the overall texturing with all this multimedia that we've applied on here. I don't know. I don't have that though, so I don't think I haven't bought a matte spray before, except for the workable fixatives. But I'm starting to run out of my glossy UV resistant Krylons, so I might, when I reorder, I might order. Uh, I don't know if they even have a satin. I know they have a matte. Um, I'll see if they have a satin or something like that, or I'll order a matte and a gloss sealant, and I'll probably apply more of the mattes every now and then. Um, I don't know, just for variation too. Okay, so thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed the piece. I really enjoyed this one. I really like having it come together. I think this scene right here would look really interesting, or this composition, different color schemes too. So, um, well, you wouldn't have these deciduous trees and, with all their leaves still on there, but I guess you can do it like a wintry type of scene where it's like the first snow of the year or something like that, or an early snow or something like that if you want to keep the trees as is. Or the thing that I was thinking about was this in kind of a bluish toned color scheme, just as a nighttime type of scenario. Always wanted to have a moon above my deciduous trees, and to do the paint pen work in shades of blue. I think that would really look good. And just this terrain in blue. So at nighttime, so not necessarily uh, winter or something like that, but just a nighttime scenario. So I don't know. I might have to do that. I might have to keep these stamps out and go for the nighttime version. It's an exercise that I've always recommended to people too, that they stamp out, if they get bored, okay, you know what I mean, or thinking of something to do, you do like 3 or different scenarios or something like that, or 4 of the same composition, but each composition represents like a different time of year. Or you can do it too, where it's like one's morning, whatever, afternoon, maybe nighttime, another one in sunset or something like that. So that's always kind of fun to do. And if you want to, you can display them together as well. But it's just a good exercise too. And you can really, put your different imagery in different types of scenarios. And they can look really quite different from one another too, just by changing the colors around. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining in. Thanks everyone for that's commented. If you're just like watching, thanks for those for just checking it out too. Always great to have you. If anyone has any questions about any of the different media, drop me a note. But I'll have all this listed. There's a gazillion things I used on this one. But that's what happens when I like where something's going. I tend to kind of just really, really kind of get into it like that. So yeah, with lightning, oh, that would be a cool one, Shelley. I should do the lightning with the I don't know what the lightning would look like with that blue holographic. Stamp out the lightning and then define it with the white pen or something like that. Especially in a mirror card situation, that might be pretty dramatic. Huh. But yeah, lightning or this or something like that. I think if I was doing the lightning, though, I'd probably move the scene down a little bit more so that I can emphasize the stuff that's going on in the sky. That would be a good exercise, though. You can stamp out your main imagery and then leave room for the sky and just have different sky scenarios. Sunset, lightning, high noon, and just nighttime sky, Milky Way or something like that would be fun. Hello, Barrett. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in here. All right, folks. Thanks again. As always, really had fun with this one. Been going, again, what I mentioned at the beginning of this video is I've been going with a lot of the monochromatics, so I really wanted to go with, do something with a lot of color. I've been going small, too, with a lot of the scrap pieces, so small, monochromatic to large and colorful. Even though it's, there's not a huge range of colors in here, but, we have some decent number of whatever values and intensities within all these different things. Browns, greens, and blues, right? For landscape stamping. All right, thanks again, everyone. Hope to see you on the next live stream in, let's see, at 3 hours at midnight. Just kidding, I won't be doing that because I'm going to have to format this video here. But oh my gosh, 3 hours on this one. 3 hours of fun. Thanks, everyone.